I'm going to get tackled, I'm drifting away, and I can fling it to a place where, all right, maybe the guy makes a catch, or maybe the other guy makes a catch in the back pylon.
Coach, was he trying to throw this away?
No, it's Aaron Rodgers, man. That's
All right,
a touchdown.
all right.
Hall of Famer right there.
That's a ridiculous placement of the football, though, to be right on top of that back pylon.
You're underselling it. That's as good a play as you'll ever see.
Phenomenal.
And this one good as well. Rodgers would say of his connection with Aaron Jones, we caught lightning in a bottle a couple of times here off the screen. 67 yards. Jones, the first Packers running back with 150 receiving yards since the merger in 1970. But again, back to that pass. That's all anyone could talk about.
That was one of the best, if not the best, pass I've ever seen live in person. That was incredible. I couldn't believe it. It was just one of those plays that kind of leaves you speechless.
I saw the ball in there, and I was like, man, that's a little high. And then I look back, and I mean, that's just who he is. He's special, and it's moments like that make him the GOAT. It really does.
I was actually throwing a ball that. I thought maybe Jimmy could go up and get if he wanted to, and if he didn't, the guy behind him might be able to get. Luckily, the guy behind him got it.
Okay, so here's the thing, and here's all I was thinking about as we were watching that, and I think we had this conversation during the offseason a little bit. When they were putting out their rankings of the top quarterbacks, everyone does that kind of stuff. And Rodgers kept sort of falling down the list a little bit. They gave Brady and Breeze the respect of putting them ahead of some of the young guys, but not Rodgers, okay? Patrick Mahomes is on his way to being the best player in the NFL. That guy still is. And Aaron Rodgers showed it to you again last night. Took them a little time to figure out this offense, but that is a play that very few people in history could make. Aaron Rodgers, let's just say it loudly, right now remains the best player in the National Football League.
And I think the incredible thing about it this year right now is he's doing it with the question marks. Like, we all questioned, myself, these receivers around him, like, are they going to be good enough? And he's just putting it on display. The reason why I don't say this is the greatest throw I've ever seen out of him, because I feel like I've seen so many great throws out of him. And we take those plays for granted. That's the downside. He's so special that I look at that play, I go, man, it's a pretty good play, although it's absolutely ridiculous.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, we've seen him. I mean, how about the Hail Marys that he's throwing? How about all
the Cowboys, the Cook on the sideline, the Super Bowl one, the Jennings down the seam.
I mean, literally every game he does stuff like this. Like, it's amazing. Aaron should have just gone with the fact that, no, I mean, I saw, Williams in the back of the end zone. I mean, he should have gone with that because we would all believe him.
Exactly. To Greeny's point, though, this was an offense that the first few weeks of the season was kind of dripping a little bit, and they're leaking. They score more points than anyone since week 4. Why? How?
Well, I mean, we talked last week, but the head coach and the quarterback are seeing it on the same page. They're all seeing it together. Now they've found a guy that they want to run their offense through. Matt LaFleur, who comes from the Rams, has taken Aaron Jones and made him his Todd Gurley. And just the usage, they put him in 7 different places yesterday, position-wise. They put him out in a bunch, motion him across, give him a little toss on a jet sweep perimeter run. They then motion him out of the backfield, and you get a one-on-one matchup with the linebacker, and he's become such a good receiver that you could throw the football to him downfield. We've seen this from Todd Gurley. And then you could put him out as a receiver, quick motion him in, throw him a screen game, and this is space, right? You get players the ball out in space, and a 5-yard throw becomes a 65-yard touchdown. We've seen the Rams do that with Todd Gurley. I mentioned it. They put Aaron Jones in 7 different positions yesterday. There's not a lot of guys in the NFL that can do that. How ironic
is it that last year they wouldn't play this guy because he couldn't do anything in the passing game? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? He's doing it now, isn't he?
He is. And Rodgers is a kind of guy who can make anyone into stars. They're still playing without their best receiver.
Hello, they don't have
That's crazy. Like, the 4 guys are undrafted. The people don't appreciate that. 4 undrafted receivers, and he's doing it every week.
Great quarterbacks put a lot of people's kids through private school. And that's what Aaron Rodgers is doing right now for a whole bunch of people. Speaking of which, let's get to our next game. Bill Belichick seeking his 300th win, including playoffs. The unbeaten Patriots taking on the Browns. Bear in mind the Browns had a bye week here, so they had extra time to prepare. And then by now you're probably aware they turn it over on 3 consecutive offensive plays.
Thing not to do against New England. Have have the ball kicked out of your hands and then recover it for a fumble, touchdown.
That's the Patriots' 4th defensive touchdown this year. They've only given up 4 offensive touchdowns. Here's the next play. Nick Chubb again.
And mid-play, you're like, all right, great. We're going to respond immediately. Chubb's going to be out in the open field. He might score here, but watch Jonathan Jones come over the top, see that football, and punch it out. And then the hustle of the defense there to recover it.
And then after a Patriots punt, it's 1st and 10 for the Browns. What does Baker Mayfield do here?
Yeah, do that. You just go, are you kidding me? When it rains, it's pouring out. When it rains, it pours. You're thinking I can easy toss to Jarvis Landry. Guy beats his offensive lineman and totally intercepts. What is it? Gimme interception.
By Guy, you mean Lawrence Guy. That's correct.
Pun.
He wasn't being generic. And there's a great play. Now here's Tom Brady. He didn't have a huge offensive day, but he did find Edelman twice.
And just in the moment, right? You 3-man rush him. You can be patient as a quarterback. We've seen it time and time again. He finds Edelman.
And then this sequence at the end, again, the Browns were going to lose the game anyway, but down 17 points late in the 4th on a 4th and 11. They decide to punt. They get a penalty. So Rex Ryan, now on 4th and 16, they decide to go for it.
Worst ever.
Rex
Are you kidding? There's no chance you can't do this.
Rex is disgusted. We'll talk about it at length. Belichick gets his 300th win, and Robert Kraft gives him a game ball after it's over to celebrate. But most of the discussion afterwards were about the continued struggles of the Browns.
We fought hard. It's not like patting us on the back, but we fought hard. But there is no pat on the back. We lost the game. That's not what we came here to do. And if we don't correct these mistakes, we're going to be the if team or coulda, woulda, all those things. So it has to get corrected.
So this is what Rex was doing the entire time we were showing that highlight. We're showing that situation. And look, am I crazy if I say watching that game, and I watched every snap of it, if you just took out some of the stuff, you would think, you know what, the Browns are just as good as they are, man for man, but they make so many mistakes.
Man for man, they're more talented. Like, this might be the most talented team in the NFL, and yet you're 2-5. But how you become 2-5? Well, you lead the NFL in penalties. You're undisciplined. That sequence at the end of the game, I mean, you can't watch it. There's no way as a coach. What's the worst thing you can do? Well, we might have just seen it right there. And, let alone these turnovers and all that. You're coming off a bye and you had 3 turnovers and 3 plays in a row. Probably not the best thing for you. And look, people would die to this sequence right here. This is impossible to make up. Number one, it's you need that 3rd and 11. You're going to throw into double coverage. Now you're going to come back low. Let's punt it. Oh, you know what? No, let's not. Let's just move it back so we make sure there's no chance in heck we're going to get this. It was just the craziest thing I've ever seen. And every week and I killed this kid. I shouldn't have been killing this kid. I should have been killing the rest of them. Look, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. This team is so talented, man to man. And they don't fire players. They fire coaches. And unfortunately for Freddie, and I think he's standing up for the special team coach. I really do. Because there's no way in heck it came to him. But he's trying to protect this guy that ran a punt team on when you're down by 17 points with six minutes left. This is the NFL. I think you try to win the game. You're not trying to cover the spread. You're trying to win the game. What the hell are you thinking about punting? Before you go, as soon as you get it, you're like, hey, we're in 4-down territory. End of discussion right there.
Is there something that Kitchens you think could take away from this game, though, Dan, and say I did this well and I didn't do this well?
I actually thought Freddie Kitchens had a good night as a play caller. Horrible night as a head coach, but a good night as a play caller. They ran the football. Listen, to your point, Greeny, the Browns had more yards per play than the Patriots did. This is the 3rd or 4th game this year that their defense played well enough to win a football game and lost against a good football team. So, I mean, listen, I was on the 2015 Lions where we started 1-7. We turned the football over a ton. We had a ton of penalties. Our head coach, Jim Caldwell, called us in and said, listen, put up a graph and said, if we minimize our turnovers and we minimize our penalties, this is what you can become. And we all kind of emphasized it and focused on it. We ended up going 6-2 down the stretch and playing in week 17 to make the playoffs. So it can be done. Unlikely, and it's a daunting task, but it can be done if they fix their penalties and turnovers.
The good news for them, the division didn't run away from them, at least not yet, but 2-5 is a very deep hole to try to dig out of. Speaking of digging into holes, Bears at home yesterday against the Chargers. Second quarter, and this was one of multiple situations in the red zone. The Bears just completely mangle. 25 seconds left, second and goal. They're out of timeouts. They run the ball, Dan, inexplicably into the line. So now they got to race up there to try and spike it and to get a field goal kicked. They go into halftime with the lead, being booed off the field. Fourth quarter, they're up 16-10, and Trubisky turns it over.
This is a terrible sequence because he had just missed a shot downfield to Taylor Gabriel, and then the very next play, he gets pushed into, he's trying to escape the pocket and cover up the football, loses it. Chargers recover, turn it into points.
Would lead to a Chargers go-ahead touchdown. So, over a minute left, just over a minute. Trubisky with a chance to be the hero. Down one. That's Allen Robinson. They're on the 34. Tick, 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 tick. Here we go. First and 10 at the 32. Trubisky, he never runs anymore.
It's the best part of his game right now is getting outside of the pocket, using his athleticism. I loved his awareness, and I really thought that was going to be a big moment for the young quarterback.
So, with 43 seconds left, the Chargers called timeout. The Bears still had one. They decide just to kneel on it and kick it from there. A questionable decision, especially with their history. Eddie Pinheiro from 10 yards closer, that's good. Instead, it misses just left. The Bears see their season most likely come to an end on a missed kick at the end. Does that sound familiar? It should. Here's Matt Nagy afterwards explaining his thinking.
What happens if you take a sack or there's a fumble?
Lose the game.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So no, there was zero thought of that. I'll just be brutally clear. Zero thought of throwing the football, zero thought of running the football. You understand me? That's exactly what it was. So it's as simple as that.
Matt Nagy did this last year, too. He has a tendency to make it seem like he's being asked stupid questions when he's being asked perfectly logical, reasonable questions. It is perfectly reasonable to ask the question, why didn't you try to get a little closer there when you don't have Adam Vinatieri? And his way of sort of putting off the answer as though he's put off by the answer. I think it's going to grate on a lot of people. That was a terribly coached game yesterday. They are coaching Mitchell Trubisky badly. They're making that pick look terrible. Right now, Matt Nagy has bigger problems than answering questions he doesn't think he likes.
Greeny, I could not agree with you more. I mean, this thing right here, like, look at yourself first, pal. And by the way, if you're not considering that, well, Greeny, we know how I handle that situation in a playoff game.
Yep.
All right, I ended up throwing a ball down the field to Braylon Edwards. One-on-one opportunity. I knew it was man coverage. We hit it. If we don't hit it, we're still going to kick the field goal. You're not going to take a sack in that situation. And if you're thinking about it, if you're really thinking about all the negative things, that's what it shows me. There's no confidence. He has no confidence. Are we going to take a sack? How about if we fumble? We're going to lose the game. Well, who thinks like that? Like, number one, you don't think like that. You think about how we're going to win, how I'm going to move the ball down the field and give my kicker a better chance. So not only is this game on the kicker, it's on the coach as well.
Listen, this is a guy who threw the ball and ran the ball from the 2-yard line at the end of the half with no timeouts left. Now with 43 seconds, he had an eternity to try and get themselves a little closer.
Yeah, yesterday, it's all about Matt Nagy. We've talked about that sequence at the end of the half with the mismanagement of the clock and running the ball on second down. They were down in the red zone 8 times, and their play call was all over the place of, okay, what do we want to do? You get bailed out, you throw a little bit of a 1-yard screen on second down, and then on third down, you get a penalty. So, okay, great, we get another opportunity. Let's try a run. Let's try a pass. Like, what is the rhyme or reason? That many plays down in the red zone, and to walk away with that little points, that falls on coaching, that falls on creativity, that falls on design. I'd also say this, like, we have communication in the helmet. You can't sit there and go, what happens if you take a sack? Because the number one thing you would tell Trubisky in that situation is don't take a sack. And as a play caller, you call a play that is catch and throw, like you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So we have all the time in the world to have that conversation. The Chargers called a timeout.
Yeah,
which I thought Anthony Lynn, I love him as a coach, but I totally disagree with him in that situation. Look, the Bears outplayed the Chargers, or excuse me, half the Chargers. This is not the entire football team that you just beat. And so you can feel good about that, but where you got beat was situational football. There's nothing more important as a coach, and they mishandled it.
And here's the worst part of the Bears right now. As they sit here, their season, it's done. They're not in the conversation anymore. Last year, you ended your year, and you thought you had your 2 biggest questions answered. We found our coach. We found our quarterback. You sit here at the beginning of November, and those 2 questions that you thought had answered are rearing their head again.
Dan may be saying that their season is done because still ahead of them, the Lions twice, the Rams Rams, the Eagles. It's not getting
They're
any
the 10th best team in the NFC,
Correct.
and that's being kind. As we continue, Baker Mayfield and the Browns looking in